This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. Here's your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, all things Chicago Blackhawks news around the NHL. Everybody, the NHL All-Star game and weekend is officially over. We're jumping back into the regular season and what's left of it. Around this time is when big trades and signings start happening with the league before deadline day. And there was a big one. The New York Islanders acquired Bo Horvat from the Vancouver Canucks, and then they just signed him to an 8-year deal. The Islanders are, I think, they're trying to win now, right? That's what this move's about.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. They're in win now mode, and obviously we kind of hit on it last week, but it was a very confusing trade, just because, kind of where the Islanders are at. So it's a very confusing trade, but obviously with the extension in place, it kind of makes a little more sense now. They have Barzal and Bo Horvat 1-2 punch for the future.
So it's kind of weird. The past couple of weeks, news around the NHL has kind of been used as a preface to Red Wings and Blackhawks news. So I feel like we kind of need to talk about this before we talk about any of the stuff that we're going to talk about for the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. On tonight's schedule for the Red Wings and the Blackhawks news, we're going to talk about Filip Zadina is back from Grand Rapids, going to be playing with the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings waived Adam Erne. He goes unclaimed, and he's playing down in Grand Rapids now. Also, it looks like Jacob Vrana is getting closer to being back to that comfort level we want to see, where he might potentially be playing with Detroit again. And then over on the Blackhawks side, some news regarding Patrick Kane. I mean, obviously the player everyone's kind of looking at for them and saying, if someone's going to get moved at the deadline, this is some comments that he made that have kind of started some buzz. I think it's really that this is real now for him. And then, I mean, you talked about it, potentially how Kyle Davidson basically, he might have saved the Blackhawks from being just this middle of the road team that waits to bottom out. And instead, he might have just potentially boosted their rebuild.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we're gonna I'm gonna hammer home about that. I mean, I know you guys want to get to the wing side early because but yeah, Kyle Davidson, he might have saved the Hawks organization. So I got a lot of thoughts on that future upcoming of the show, because holy cow.
So the Wings really only have, the Zadina and the Erne move to talk about. We can talk about Vrana for a second, but the first piece of news, Filip Zadina looks like he's going to be playing back with the Detroit Red Wings, this upcoming week. He's been put back on the roster. Adam Erne got waived and sent down to Grand Rapids. And I've seen a lot of people online already saying, Adam Erne's been putting up better numbers than Filip Zadina got to this year. Yes, is that true? Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, Filip Zadina still can be a piece for Detroit when they're done rebuilding. Adam Erne, I don't think is. And no shade to Adam Erne, but just about every team already has an Adam Erne style player. He's one of those guys who, if you can get one for, $1 million, maybe $1.5 million, you will get one, and they're okay players to have. But I think Filip Zadina, for what the Red Wings really want to do for 5, 6, even maybe 10 years down the road, Filip Zadina is a player who they need to be looking at and saying, let's figure out if this is actually what we're doing with our club, because he's got, I think, a lot more potential long-term than Adam Erne does if he can seem to break this just ridiculous scoring drought that he seems to be in. I mean, David, what is your initial takeaway from what's been going on with both of these moves?
I mean, Adam Erne is not the player we're going to have once we're out of this rebuild. He's not a player that's going to be a top 6. He'd be more of a bottom 6 type player. if he's someone that we keep around. Erne has good stats. He's a good PK player. But Zadina's a 6th overall pick. Zadina has grown a lot with the team. Yes, he's not scoring goals as often as we'd like, but he has a great two-way ability and the goals will come. I think the fact that Zadina had one game conditioning stint?
No, technically it was a 2-game, but
2 games? Okay, I know he scored the game tying goal against the Texas Stars.
yeah,
whatever
Texas
they're called.
Stars.
And then we won in a shootout. But if Lalonde and Yzerman think he's ready to come back up, I think he's ready to come back up. Will he be top 6 right away? Probably not. But I think he could work his way up there. And just imagining him with players like a Berggren, like a hopefully returning Verana soon, would be fun to watch. Erne, it's tough. Like, Ernie's a good player. He's a hardworking player. Would I like to see him back up? Yes. Do I think he will? Yeah, I think he will. Things are bound to happen. People are bound to get switched around, but I think it's the right move.
My thing is kind of this: the Wings. You don't want to say the season's already botched because they're sitting over 500 right now. So obviously this team's good enough to fight for like a real playoff spot. And maybe not, like obviously like a top 2 position in their division, but they are good enough to play for a wild card spot. And as much as it would be good to get into the playoffs this year and like really get some of the players like Larkin, like Raymond, like Sider playoff reps so they can kind of get hungry for that and get a taste of it. I think management's probably looking around it this year and saying, we didn't really have the healthiest roster that we wanted to have this year. And rather than try to get this roster that we really wanted to have going into this season before the injury bug hit a bunch of people, I think they might just be kind of looking at this team and going, we wanted to make it happen this year. It didn't happen this year. And if it's not going to happen this year, let's at least continue to let the players who are expected to be contributing players when this team's done rebuilding get quality reps for the rest of the season. Like, it's weird. I think we've said it before on the show. The Red Wings are in arguably the toughest division in the NHL. Like, if the Red Wings were over in the West, I think they're a playoff team, and it's not even a question. They're just ridiculously stacked in that division with other quality teams. It's hard to get a playoff spot. Like, you have to be one of the best teams in the league.
It is. And I'm looking at like the Atlantic. Boston, they're aging. So a couple of years, they won't be this, hopefully, top quality team like we see. Toronto, they're going to go broke.
Matthews is gone in 2024.
Yeah, that team's going to go broke. They can't afford other players. Tampa, you can't keep playing at that high of a level without the wheels falling off. Look at the Wings. We kept making the playoff. It's going to happen. Buffalo is always a toss-up. Florida, toss-up. Ottawa, they have pieces that they should be good, but they're struggling. I think in a couple of years, as those teams in our division start to kind of dwindle a bit, we're just going to continue to rise, is the hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, the East is such a powerhouse, boys. It seems like during like the mid 2010s during the Blackhawks run, it was like East was kind of like the little brother of the West because it was like the Kings, the Blackhawks, kind of battling for their own dynasty within. But now you got Tampa trying to build a dynasty. I mean, they already are a dynasty. You got Boston just on a wagon. The Capitals always around. The Pittsburgh Penguins always around. You got a couple of teams on the up and up, like the Senators, the Devils. Like, there's so many good teams on the East. And obviously, it's tough to predict like the losing teams now where they could be in a couple of years. Usually, you just said, David, you would think like eventually the wheels fall off of these top tier teams. Like, eventually pieces leave. They try to go elsewhere and win. Because some have already felt the sense of winning and now they want to get that paycheck. But I think the Wings are on a good progression. What we've seen out of Yzerman, yeah, obviously the goal was playoffs this year. I think we all had them in. But where they are now and what they're looking like to set up for the future, I think they got it. They're set up perfectly fine.
The other piece of Wings news that I think is kind of important to touch on, Jacob Verana has been looking a lot better in Grand Rapids as of late. I want to say, like, I'm obviously hopeful he gets to play more games this year in Detroit. I think anybody who's a Wings fan really wants to see that for him. But again, it's not the end of the world if Jacob Verana doesn't play this year in Detroit. Like, I think after this year or next year, like his cap hits off the books. And Detroit, I think, still retains RFA rights on him, if I remember right. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure they still retain RFA rights on him.
Let me check.
If Verana doesn't play, it's not the end of the Wings world. Like, would we have liked him to have played? Sure, absolutely. He showed some great flashes of what he can do, just scoring potential wise. But Jacob
He's a
Verana
UFA.
is a UFA.
Yeah, he's a UFA.
Is that after next year or this year? I'm trying to remember.
Next year.
Okay.
After next year, so 24-25, he'll be a UFA.
But so, like, even if he doesn't play this year, the Wings still have him for next year. And I think by next year, he should be ready to come play in the NHL. Okay, you missed out on a year of Jacob Verana. It's not the end of the Wings world. Like, if the lottery balls happen to fall in the Wings' favor and they land one of the top 2 picks from this draft, great. Oh no, you missed a year of Jacob Verana and it let you get a high-end quality player. Now, granted, it's a draft lottery. The Red Wings never win. We never move up, so it's not going to happen anyway. But I got to humor myself here, and like, it's not the end of the world if the Wings don't get Jacob Verana this year.
Mm-hmm. I know I said it a few times now, but it's crazy how many expiring contracts we have this year. Like, super crazy.
To build out that Verana point, Jordan, it's kind of just like an extra bonus to your roster now if he does end up coming back up, and if he does stick around. Like, it's just an extra, because it's been so long that you've been without him. It's kind of just like a little extra bonus perk if he does come up. It's like more fuel to the fire. So I mean, you're used to the team without Jacob Verana. Obviously, it was exciting when you guys acquired him, especially the short stint he had with the Wings before he got hurt. It was kind of like lightning in the bottle. It's like, holy cow, this kid's fast. He has a hell of a shot. So, I mean, if you guys get him back up on the roster to finish out the year or have him around next year and he's a big part of the team, that trade could still be a very big win for you guys. And I still think it is.
And it's kind of like a good point, Nick. You know, Jacob Verana at this point in the Red Wings season, it's just bonus at this point. Like, might the team have been better if he was in the lineup? Sure, absolutely. I think there are quite a few games where the Wings lost by 1 or 2 goals that maybe Jacob Verana would have been that difference maker. But the fact is he wasn't there. And the Wings kind of just built their system around not having him. And so everyone got used to not having him on the team. So if you happen to get it, great, extra.
I can't remember. What did we use the Capitals picks on again? Or have we used them all?
The one was it? They gave us a 1st-round draft pick, Jacob Verana for, what was it? Anthony Mantha. And then we got Jacob Verana back, and we took off Richard Panik from their team. So basically they paid us a 1st-round draft. Like, in terms of assets, it's either they paid us a 1st-round draft pick to take Richard Panik off their roster, or the first moved it up so that we would take Richard Panik from them.
I'm trying to find it now. Just trying to see what we use those picks on.
But either way, like it's like you said, like
they moved Wyatt.
They moved up to draft Kosa.
Okay, so great. Detroit acquired a potential starting caliber goaltender for the future. Like,
they used other assets to move up to draft Kosa.
Not the end of the world, especially considering Anthony Mantha's playing what, 4th line or scratched in Washington right now.
Yeah, it's looking like a disaster in Washington in general right now.
Minus Ovechkin scoring, it's pretty much all they got.
But yeah, like I think it's awesome. Like, I think it's good that Jacob Verana looks like he's taking the steps forward to finally be back with the Wings. I think the Wings really are going to want his offense, obviously, if they do see him as a piece of this core rebuild. But again, like I said, even if they don't, his contract's up after next year, I believe, anyway. So it's not like the Wings signed him to like some 7-year deal and all of a sudden he can't play anymore. This was a short-term contract to begin with. Like, it's not a contract that the Wings sort of have as like a ball and chain around their feet and they can't do anything because of it. This contract, even if Jacob Vrana never comes back, you have it for 2 years and it's gone.
Yep. It's very true.
I mean, I think the only other thing to talk about is I'm kind of going to wrap it back a little bit to what we were talking about with Bo Horvat earlier. Bo Horvat signed an 8-year deal with the New York Islanders, making, what was it, like 8.5 or something like that $1 million a year?
11.
11 mil. 11
Wait,
mil.
wait, did I read
It's
the
eight.
details of the contract wrong?
It's 8 by 88. So 8 by 11.
Okay, so yeah, I must have read the details wrong. But so anyway, signs an 8-year deal with the New York Islanders after getting traded from the Vancouver Canucks. 8 by 11. You've got, like, the Red Wings have got to be looking at that contract and then looking at Dylan Larkin. And I mean, I'm kind of looking at the stat line here. Dylan Larkin's got to be a $9 million center this year, free agency, right, David? Like, I've seen a lot of people saying they're not comfortable paying more than 8, but if you use this contract as a comparable, Dylan Larkin's got to be a $9 million center. Like,
I'd say 9 to 9.5 is the highest I'd go.
I wouldn't be I would not feel comfortable paying him 11, but I think 9 to 9.5 is gonna be where that number lands somewhere. And I don't think it's unreasonable.
No, it's not. I don't think it is at all. Is he a great player? Yes. People are like, oh man, Dylan Larkin needs to be paid. Look how great he is in the All-Star game, all these goals he's scoring. Like, it's the All-Star game. No one's trying. Like, and he's playing around other superstars. Dylan Larkin's great, don't get me wrong, but he's not an $11 million center.
Like $11 million centers, that's when you start talking about the McDavids of the world, the Matthews of the world. Like,
Not Bo Horvat. I don't think Bo Horvat was worth 11 million. I think the
Yeah.
Islanders overpaid.
yeah, but that being said, man, like, I think this move makes the New York Islanders have real pressure to win now. And you got Barzal
yeah.
and Horvat. You have your 1-2 center punch now.
Very
I mean,
true.
like I said, I think 9 to 9.5 is going to be very reasonable for Dylan Larkin. And I think he deserves it, to be honest. He's the best center on this club. He's stuck with this team through a real rebuild. And by the time that this, like, they're really competing again every year, the salary cap's expected to go up, what, $4 million within the next 2 years? So this deal isn't going to be that bad, all things considered, if he signs like an 8 by 9 or even 8 by 9.5. I mean, I think at that point, it's kind of splitting hairs. I mean,
Yeah.
Nick, if you were in the Wings position, what would you feel comfortable inking Larkin to?
I would say like 9 to 9.5 again with David. I think he's a top tier center. I mean, maybe he's a 2 on a really good team, but right now he's your 1, and he needs to be paid like a 1. And 1 C's don't grow on trees, and you got to keep him around. And it worked out with Kane and Tays. You paid them 10.5, so.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Nick?
I think we might have.
He's frozen.
Yeah, I think we just lost Nick.
He's gone.
That's a shame. We were about to go move on to the Blackhawks stuff after this one.
I guess what happened to Tim happened to him because Tim's not here, and I forgot to mention what happened to him. This morning, Tim decided to go out and check his mail. Second he walked out on the porch, though, some child neighbor of his had dumped a whole box of Legos on his porch. He stepped all over those Legos. Feet are just massacred. couldn't walk to his computer tonight. Hope he feels better soon.
But I mean, while we're waiting for Nick to come back, I mean, like I was saying, like I think, when you look at Bo Horvat's contract,
Mhm.
him and Larkin both coming up on UFA status. Maybe like Dylan Larkin takes, like a $9 million contract to be quote unquote team friendly. That's kind of what Nathan MacKinnon did with the Avalanche until they won their cup. Like Nathan MacKinnon took a very team friendly contract to make it so the Avalanche could still compete before the cap started going up again. And
Yeah.
is Dylan Larkin Nathan MacKinnon? No. But is he that player, like the tier right below that player? Yeah, absolutely. I think he is. And like Nick was saying, is he a bona fide number one franchise changing center like Crosby or like McKinnon or like McDavid? No. But he is the tier of guys just below that who, when you put them with other great wingers, they're putting up 80, 90 points a season. Like, Dylan Larkin produces at what is basically a top 2 center potential. And like he was saying, those don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick, you cut out on us.
You there?
Maybe he's still there.
He might not have sound. Rattlesnakes. So I don't know. Like Dylan Larkin is a hometown kid, and I'm sure he wants to win a cup. I mean, why wouldn't you want to win a cup? And I'm sure he really wants to win it with Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a chance, we sit down and they look at the numbers and they say, we're not going to be able to pay you these 11, 12 million, but with this pay cut, we can bring in A, B, and C and make a push for a cup run. How would you say no to that?
That's the thing is like Dylan Larkin's got the chance to be loved forever in Detroit if he does something like that. Like,
like hypothetically, I'm a great hockey player and I play for the Red Wings, my team that I grew up watching, and they, I have a chance to win a cup and take a pay cut because I want that cup. I'm going to do it. Look at Tom freaking Brady, greatest NFL player of all time. Has what, 7 Super Bowls, right?
yeah, it's a stupid number. Stupid number.
He was taking like huge pay cuts in New England. Why? Because they could get his Wes Welkers. They could get his, Julian Edelmans. They could get Gronk. They could get all these players, to build this team to win the Super Bowl. Okay. To be Super Bowl contenders every year. And he wasn't getting paid like an Aaron Rodgers, garbage human being who's won one Super Bowl. And that was because his defense helped him win it. Like, you want to win, you can't do it by yourself. And you got to be able to pay those other players.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, we always talk about Toronto and Edmonton as great examples of this. Like, you have two of like the highest paid players in the NHL, McDavid and Draisaitl, on Edmonton. Where are they going? Because the team can't afford depth pieces.
First round knockout.
I mean, they made it far last year, but before that, it's been nothing.
Toronto, they're super stacked with their forwards. That makes up most of their salary. Who else are they going to bring in? Like, you gotta pay people, but you also gotta build a depth team. Look at St. Louis when they won the cup. That was a team of depth and they won. Look at Tampa and their back-to-back cups and then almost a third. They had some star caliber championships. They had some star caliber players, but those star caliber players were players they drafted smart with and brought in small. Like, you gotta have the depth. The greatest player in hockey, Connor McDavid, may never win a cup if he doesn't have a team around him. He can score. He can have 100+ point seasons every freaking year. Cool. That's awesome. But your name will never be on the cup.
Nick, you back with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, no, I mean, you guys are nailing the nail on the head. It's just homegrown talent's what gets you far. I mean, it's the drafting. I mean, I know it's kind of cliche, but building from your own farm and kind of building up from there. That's the way you win in this league. That's the way you win in every professional league. There's a reason why. Like when it comes free agency, yeah, it's nice to add different pieces and like names and like people you can see affect the talent right, affect the on ice talent right away. But there's a reason why they're free agents. Like they didn't value their own team didn't value them enough that they are going somewhere else. I mean, sure, there's certain scenarios where like they just didn't like the player didn't want to be there and everything like that. But like they're free agents for a reason is because they weren't wanted by their original team or their original team didn't really make out enough room to keep them and they valued other pieces over them. So it's like you said, I mean, to win the East, though, it's just gonna be depth. And I mean, you gotta build through the middle. And I think kind of tying it all back together when I was starting to have internet issues, I think Larkin's a big part of that. Is if he's not your 1C, at least you got a really damn good 2C.
Like that's it. Like any team that doesn't have a Crosby, a McDavid, a McKinnon, on any team that doesn't have that quality of player, Dylan Larkin, like you said, Nick, that's your 1C. Like it's only fair he gets paid when he's doing the work of a top line center. I actually kind of like your remark, about like teams valuing and making room like that. I mean, you kind of saw that with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, two of the players who the Hawks are going to be looking to move this potential trade deadline if they're willing to accept. I kind of want to use that as like a springboard to talk about that. Like Patrick Kane made some comments in the media that kind of sound like, okay, maybe he is okay leaving Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything started kind of come together today. It sounds like, officially, Pat Brisson has approached Patrick Kane with some teams that have shown interest in trading for him. But to build off that, like, I'm glad it kind of wasn't just left at that. Patrick Kane still is undecided about what to do for his future. But that leaves, I mean, it just leaves the question. It's like, this is not even the question. It's just the gut feeling like this is starting to get real. And, it's kind of scary. You got, I mean, and not only is Pat Brisson the agent of Kane, but he's also the agent of Taves. So, he's doing the same thing with Jonathan Taves right now. And the only reason why we didn't hear from it today is because Taves has been out the last couple of days due to illness. So it's kind of seeming more and more real as the days go on. And now, like, we're 3 weeks from the deadline. Like, this is probably going to happen. And, Kane kind of followed up with it saying something along the lines of it's intriguing and could be exciting about the opportunities that are out there and kind of get left the old we'll see. So it's
so crazy to think about.
And like the thing is though, like has Kane came right out and said, yeah, I'll take a trade somewhere? No, but if you go talk to somebody like Duncan Keith, who played with the same organization you did for what they both played for 16 years in Chicago.
Keith a little longer than Kane and Taves, but yeah.
Like, and you talk to that guy about the exact same thing that's on the table for you right now and what that experience was like. And that guy says, it was nice to go just try somewhere else and just kind of get an idea for what it felt like to play somewhere else and be kind of closer to home. I mean, is Patrick Kane probably got great memories of Chicago? Yeah, of course. You won 3 championships there. Like, how could you not? But I don't think it's unrealistic for him to maybe be looking around and saying, you know what? New York's kind of like in a spot where they could be winning right now. Might be kind of cool to like win one kind of close to home. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, that's 100%. I think that's what fans need to realize too. Like, if there was anyone like going back to the dynasty, it was like, all right, Keith's going to be a Hawk for life. He's not going anywhere. Kane, Hawk for life, yada, yada. It was always like kind of assured that Taves might end up leaving. But if Duncan Keith gets traded, that leaves really all the tables open. I mean, he was the epitome of a Chicago Blackhawk, or just a Chicagoan in general, just kind of a grinder, hardworking guy. He's going to be the best. And kind of slept on. He was a second round pick. I wasn't expected to be this top pair, and he was a Norris Trophy winner, Conn Smythe winner. But yeah, if Duncan Keith got traded, that really means like everybody could be traded. And
Nobody's safe.
no, nobody's safe. And Keith wasn't even that bad in his prime. He just wasn't he wasn't a top pair D-man anymore, which is fine.
Yeah.
Kane's not Kane this year. He's dealing with some nagging injuries, along with just a terrible team on the ice in general. And yeah, I mean it's getting very scary. And like you said, Jordan, sometimes you kind of you got to do what's best for yourself too. Like you got to do what's best for your career. If you think going to win somewhere, if Patrick Kane thinks going to win somewhere else is the best opportunity for his career right now, why shouldn't he take it?
That's it. That's the other thing is, I mean, sports careers are not guaranteed at the end of the day. Like they're usually really limited and they can end in any moment given a freak injury of some kind. Why would he not want, like you said, want to go potentially win somewhere else if the chance is right for him? No one can really be mad if he does decide, I want to do what's best for me at this point. And for him, maybe that is going to New York or Boston or Tampa or some team that's going to make the cap space for him. Because if Chicago retains 5.25 million,
Yeah,
retains half, I think just about every team in the league that has real cup aspirations would be like, yeah, we'll find a way to make $5.25 million work in our cap structure.
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, for a talent like Kane, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you do it? But also, what I do know is, according to David Pagnotta, the two teams that have reached out, that is known to reach out so far, is obviously the New York Rangers. That's been clear and obvious this whole time. They might as well just put it on their billboards like, hey, Kane, come home. And the team that would just make me disgusted, sick, puke my guts out, the Dallas Stars. That's one. So those are two teams.
That would break Timmy. That would break Timmy.
That'd break my heart. In the division. Yeah, that would break my heart. Tim's heart, I know for sure. He hates the Stars more than just as much as he hates the Blues. So
he hates the Stars more than he loves Chicago.
yeah, that might be the case. So those are two teams for sure that have reached out about Kane. But also, I know we kind of been leaning back and forth on this idea. With Kane's injury is pretty well known. I think Elliot Freeman reported today on his 32 Thoughts podcast that players around the league know that what Kane's battling through, dealing with this nagging issue. That means general managers know about it too. And I think the Hawks are going to be lowballed, and I truly am not completely sold on Kane leaving at the trade deadline. Like, I think it's possible. But if we've seen it before with Davidson, kind of just, Calvin DeHaan. I know it's a completely different player tier of talent, but like he didn't get what he wanted, so he's not going to move him. And I mean, Patrick Kane, I think if he doesn't get traded, why would he just leave? Kind of like, I mean, unemotionally, it's kind of just like, all right, I'm walking in July where nobody's really paying attention to hockey. I think so I'm not sold on Kane being officially traded, but it's starting to get more and more realistic. That's for sure.
If he goes to Dallas, it's going to be like that clip of Bart Simpson where he's got like the TV remote in front of him. He's talking to the guy and he goes, at this exact moment, you can see where the guy's heart explodes in his chest. Like, I feel like that's going to be all of the Chicago fan base if he goes to Dallas.
Oh God, that's the last thing I want. I mean, I shouldn't say the last thing. It's one of the last things. I mean, St. Louis would suck too, but St. Louis is not in a position to do so. Yeah, no, it's Dallas would hurt. Dallas would hurt, but we've seen Patrick Sharp go there too. So
before we started recording, Nick, you were talking about Kyle Davidson, and as much as some fans don't like him, I actually really like Kyle Davidson and how he's running the Blackhawks right now from like an outside perspective. I actually think he's doing a really good job managing the club, given the situation that he walked into. And we kind of talked about it in the group text before the show, just how much the Blackhawks prospect pool has improved just during his tenure alone with the Hawks. And part of that had to do with the Brandon Hagel trade.
yeah, no, I mean, it really, that's a good tie-in, George. Just kind of like we go from talking Kane and Tays potentially being moved, and like it all comes to Kyle Davidson's asset management, which I think it's been absolutely phenomenal just because going not just that is just the start of it. Going into kind of what it all ties into is like the Hawks were 25th in prospect rankings last season. In one full season, Davidson went from 25th to 5th. A top 5 prospect farm system. Like, I mean, it's mind blowing that you take a 20-step leap. You don't see that. Like, usually when you're 25th, you're kind of just like you eventually gain a top prospect, but like the Hawks have just added plethora of talent into their organization left and right. And it's just, it amazes me how quick of a turnaround that this has really turned into just on building off this prospect system. I mean, kind of tying into the Wings, you guys, the Wings are ranked 4th right now. I mean, they've been rebuilding for a little bit. I mean, it's an extreme talent, but like going back to that Brandon Hagel trade, it was all like there was this numbers game based on liquidity and like what your liquid assets are, which ones you could afford to get rid of, and how you take advantage of that. And I'm going to go through this little Twitter thread real quick. Sorry, I know I'm rambling on. Then I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. So Brandon Hagel, it was like this guy, Brett Lee, put it all together. I'm going to give him his credit where it's due. Prime example of a team monetizing a highly liquid asset. The Brandon Hagel trade netted 4 future assets of a player with only 1.5 NHL seasons. And it's saying, could something like this happen at the deadline? It's just saying Hagel's contract, 3 years, 1.5. It was a gamble that tested the development and coaching. And kind of what Davidson had in mind, Hagel would be this late 20s, less liquid by the time Chicago is contending. His value could never be higher based off that season and a half. And the return he could fetch would transform their entire asset pipeline, which ties into this now. Who are the top 2 players that kind of fit this guy's model? Taylor Radish, Chicago Blackhawk, 2 years remaining at $750,000. Sam Lafferty, Chicago Blackhawk, $1.5 million, same contract as Hagel, and kind of like it's these little players that are not these big names that's really transforming the that could transform the Chicago Blackhawks.
I mean, like that's kind of the thing though, and like as much fun as it is to talk about the superstar players, the guys who put the highlight reel goals, hockey's a unique game. Your superstars are probably only playing 20 some minutes a night, maybe 30 minutes if you've got a guy who has got just ridiculous superhuman levels of stamina. That other 40 minutes of the game, somebody else has to be out there. And when you can find value players who can take those minutes, that's so ridiculously invaluable. And a lot of people, I don't think look at that. They look at just strictly who are the star players you have available to you and your team, and then how do you build off those players? But like I said, those players are only playing 20-ish minutes a night. Somebody else has to be playing those other minutes. And when you can find guys on very affordable, very budget-friendly deals to produce for you, or at least hold the fort down while the stars are resting, that stuff's super valuable, especially when it comes time to do like any sort of like meaningful team build.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, you can't like you said, you look at the Maple Leafs, you look at the Stars back a couple of years or 3, 4, 5 years ago, like they were relying on these big name guys, but like you bring in a Brandon Hagel who's kind of wasn't really given a chance. The Sabres kind of let him walk. Taylor Radish was thrown into the trade for Hagel, which is kind of ironic how it all came together. And Sam Lafferty, who was traded for a project we gave up on, an Alex Nylander, and now he's a big commodity. Like, oh man, he could fetch a big return now because he's a great penalty killer. He's kind of taking advantage. He's a good two-way forward. So it really all ties into like you have like Davidson. So going back to how the segment started, Davidson kind of saved the Hawks from middling. Like with Stan Bowman, we were seeing these high drafted picks kind of be dealt. Like you would draft Filip Zadina, gone. Adam Boquist, gone. Name every other Teuvo Teravainen, gone. Like he would not let these first round picks stay and develop. It was just, what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? How could I trade these guys? And just try to acquire known talent. Davidson is taking on these smaller guys, trading them out, and letting these picks develop and just kind of turning into this number 5 prospect farm system. And it's just insane that if Stan Bowman was still around, that we went from rebuilding one year to trying to contend, trading for Marc-Andre Fleury, Tyler Johnson, and whatnot in one off season. And it was like, rebuild's off. We're going to win now. Davidson kind of stopped, put a halt to that and said, once Bowman got fired, put a halt to it. It's like, no. This team's not going anywhere. Like, we're done. We're dead in the road. We got to get rid of everybody. Like, start clearing house and build for the future, because this team had its window. That window's shut. Like, we could try to pry it open. It's closed. Now Davidson is starting his own thing from scratch, and it's really showing. Just based off the 1.5 years he's been here building up this farm system.
And like, that's the other thing. Like, I've seen people say, like, prospect systems are great and all, but what does your core look like in a couple of years? And the thing about the Hawks prospect system that I actually really like is your guys' prospect system. A lot of your high end pieces are at varied positions to work with. Like, you've got Nazar, who is projecting to be a center. You've got Korchinski, who's going to be looking like a high end defenseman. You've got what's his name, Drew Cameso, who's going to be, looks like, in my opinion, a good goaltender for you, if like he can really start to put things together at the pro level. Like, the Hawks, it looks like, have finally started to really diversify their prospect pool and try to get talent in every position instead of just trying to zone in on a certain group of players. And I think that's really, like I said, where strong prospect farms come from.
No, 100%. I mean, you see what the Hawks drafted. They went after speedy guys and skilled guys like Nazar, Korchinski, who's one of the fastest D-men in the W. And versatile wise, because like Reichel could play both wing and center. Ryan Green could both play wing and center. Frank Nazar could both play wing and center. Like, it goes on and on. And then like Renzel was kind of like the finishing piece to, like, we know we have a good defensive pool, as we've seen. Like that's been the Hawks MO for drafting and developing. It's like, all right, we got a lot of defensive pieces. Like, who are we going to get rid of now to start clearing room? So like, it's really just building off this, and it's kind of coming together just in the this last draft class. Our top prospects are three of them are from this last draft class. Like, or actually 4 of them. Sorry, 4 of them with Ryan Green. So Kyle Davidson is just kind of working the board. Again, I'm going back to asset management, managing his assets, kind of moving pieces that need to be moved, and he's making it something out of nothing. Like, expiring contract, gone. Oh, you're at a buy high right now. See you later. You're not going to be part of this team going forward. Like, you're 26. We're not going to win for another 3-4 years. We don't want you when you're 30. Bye. Good luck. It's smart thinking, and it's so nice to see. It's refreshing to see, rather than trying to add pieces that we know and whatnot and try to turn this ship around, clearing house. And, it might take trading Kane and Tays, but it needs to happen. And Davidson's kind of like ready to rip that Band-Aid off. And it's, as much as it hurts to say goodbye to one era, the next era is looking just as good.
Like, the thing is also, like, Davidson has been very consistent as a GM. Like you said, like, Stan Bowman, he kind of just started flip-flopping between we're rebuilding. Just kidding, we're going for the playoffs this year. Oh, we're back to rebuilding now. Kyle Davidson has been very, very adamant about the whole, like, we're rebuilding from day one from when he took over the Blackhawks as general management. You've got to have somebody who's willing to have a plan and just stick with the plan, I think, in sports. Like, even like, let's say the Hawks have something happen next year and they are just outside the playoff window. I still think that Kyle Davidson's going to look at the team and say, yeah, we probably could have had like a fluke and gotten in, but the talent's still not there for this club yet. Like, I think Davidson's one of the few guys who is a general manager right now in the NHL who I look at and say, he's got a very clear-cut plan. He knows what he's going to do. It's just a matter of waiting for the plan to actually pan out. And you can't say that about a lot of GMs, especially when most GMs have a job for a couple of years tops.
Yeah, I mean it's a job security league, and not everybody really has a job security. But I think Davidson, in the small track record that he has right now, is kind of showing a lot. I mean, again, I know I mentioned it already, but jumping from 25 to 5 in prospect ranking is a big deal. And yeah, yeah, your job's not always safe, but you kind of got to stay one path or the other. Otherwise, it's just you're gonna be the Minnesota Wild. Like you don't want to be the Minnesota Wild. You want to be a Tampa Bay Lightning. You want to be a Colorado Avalanche. Like it all starts like just by sticking to your path. And that's kind of what ruined the Hawks, I think, back in the Bowman regime, is during that COVID year, they were a wacky team. Like Brandon Hagel was this interesting piece. It's like, holy cow. And then like Philip Kurstev, Pius Suter before he was known. And it's like all these names, they came together. It's like, oh, what do we got going on here? We just missed the playoffs. So I'm glad to see Davidson kind of sticking his ground. I know we're going to see a lot more names being moved. I know the past episodes we've been speculating who gets moved, who stays. I think he has a couple moves up his sleeve that we're not really speculating right now, because he's kind of just keeping his guns to his chest. And, when he sees something he likes, he's going to fire.
I mean, that is one thing. Like I respect general managers a lot more who actually stick to a plan. And I think as fans, it's easier to do that. Like as a fan, what's easier for you? To know that your team's rebuilding and then in a couple of years, you're going to get to be at the top of the mountain and enjoy it for a while, or be stuck in this constant roller coaster of up and down, up and down, up and down, and just never having real expectations. Like
I'd rather be rock bottom than middling.
I would too, because eventually, after being at the bottom for long enough, you're going to go to the top.
Like how many times can you deal with heartbreak losing in the first or second round? It's like, oh God, we did that. We just did this last season.
The Wings did it for like 4 or 5 years in a row.
But you guys had a record going. Like I'm talking about like Cowboys fans. I know it's a different sport, but like how could you just like year after year, it's the same thing. It's like watching a rerun of The Office or something. It's like, oh, here we go again. This is where we lose. And like you want to, like the goal is to win it all. And in order to win it all in the NHL, you need star-studded talent. You need to go to rock bottom. You need to rebuild. You need to build depth. Like you can't just have, again, compared to the NFL, like you can't just have a Tom Brady and just have him carry everybody else. Look at Connor McDavid. He's on pace for 150 points this year. And the Oilers, nobody really trusts the Oilers. Nobody's like, oh, they're locked for the Stanley Cup because they got Connor McDavid. No.
Like, and that is like, let's say Connor McDavid goes out. Like, where are the Oilers going? Probably nowhere. Like, one player doesn't make a team. You've got to have a group of guys to do it.
And right now, besides Heisman, based off what I've seen out of Davidson, there's no other GM I would want. He's really changed the whole trajectory of this organization, and took a team that was heading towards a helpless franchise again to, we're going to be relevant in a couple of years. And I'm excited to see how this all plays out. See these prospects that kind of boosted our pool, and see what else we add in this upcoming draft.
I don't have anything else on the docket. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we close out the show? I know it's kind of a short one because,
I mean, there's not a lot of news. All-Star break.
Yeah, and Tim's not here to keep building off me. It's kind of I can only talk so long for the Hawks.
Just that my 2 recent players on our card league have just been, contributing very nicely for me.
All right.
I am going to the game tomorrow. I'm going to be firsthand. I'm going to be heading to Chicago. I'm going to be at the UC. It kind of sucks because as I said early in the show, Taze is out. And as of right now, like this was expected to be my last game in attendance. So it kind of hurts. I might be able to like kind of see Kane one last time, but Taze might just be like, oh, I seen you back in January on a blowout loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm excited to go though. I mean, Trevor Zegras is in the house. Patrick Kane versus the Ducks should be a fun time. And yeah, we'll see where that goes.
We've been doing it the past couple weeks, closing out the show with a fun topic to talk about. The topic last week, what was it? Was it the
I
Potatoes.
wasted
yeah,
some
potatoes? It was the potatoes.
How could you forget?
This week, what like we were kind of talking about in the group text before the show. Everybody's got like a guilty pleasure song, a song that like it doesn't match up at all to their musical tastes. Like if anybody saw you listening or heard that you listened to it, they would be 100% certain that they were being told lies. Guys, what is your guilt? Well,
So
preface it and
Tim's-
tell me what is your guilty pleasure song, and I'm gonna
So-
go first with Tim's because Tim's not
Okay.
here. Tim said
Tim's is a
that
good song. I don't know why it's guilty pleasure. That's just a good song.
Tim said that his guilty pleasure song is "Ohio Is for Lovers" by Hawthorne Heights, which
That's high school, college for me, right
That
there.
is a-
Hawthorne Heights.
I probably heard the song. I don't know it. Like I
It's
don't
because
know.
you're much younger. You don't know the Hawthorne
Guys, I'm like
Heights.
4 years younger than you all.
Yeah,
That's
but like-
that's a long time. It's a long time. I'm old, dude. You're still in your prime.
I feel like it.
I stand up and I go, ugh, my knees.
But Tim said his is "Ohio Is for Lovers." Gentlemen, who wants to go first? Because if you guys don't want to go first, I'll go first.
Jordan go and then Nick
Yeah,
go.
Jordan, go ahead.
All right. So anybody who knows me knows that like I love metal, and when I say metal, I'm not talking about like Metallica stuff like that. Like I'm talking about like the real hardcore metal stuff, like the stuff that like you can't understand half of the words of it. Like I don't know, it gets me pumped and like I just love it. Like it's my scene.
You're a death metal guy. I get
Yeah,
it.
like I love death metal, like Suicide Silence, the Black Dahlia Murder. Who's the other one that I really got into when I was younger?
Let me
there's one-
guess. Katy Perry, I kissed a girl.
No, it is not Katy Perry, but like when I'm alone in my car and like if there's a song I'm gonna be playing, it's Kelly Clarkson's "My Life Would Suck Without You."
Yes.
I don't know what it is about the song. Like it's catchy, it's upbeat, and
I like it. Did not see that.
No,
coming.
I mean it is catchy. My life.
like it's not even a good song, but for some reason, like
It puts you in a good mood though.
I don't know why. Like it's completely opposite of the rest of my musical tastes, but it's it's a guilty pleasure song. Like nobody would expect me to listen to it.
No, it puts you in a good mood. It's upbeat and it's kind of like a weird aggressive love song in one way too. It's like it's about this person like, hey, my life would suck without you in my life. Like life would suck without you. So it is a jam. I mean, Kelly Clarkson, she screams. It's like a pop version of a screamo band because Kelly Clarkson, she screams a lot.
All right, Nick, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to preface this with saying I mean, it's not shocking based on the genre because I love country music. Country music is my go-to. That and grunge. I love grunge. I love country music. I love 90s alternative. But this song is, let's just say it's not meant for the fellas. And it's Man, I Feel Like a Woman by Shania Twain.
Great song. It's a great song.
It
It's
is a good
slapper.
song. It is a good listen, if that song comes on, yeah, I was gonna preface it by playing like the first 3 seconds. Dude, when that Let's Go Girls comes on,
I'm ready.
I'm ready to put on my boots and do the boot scooting boogie. That song comes on.
Get
in
some
the car.
apple teenies pouring.
Oh,
I'm
I'll be-
excited.
If you're driving next to me, I don't know who's listening to this. If you're driving next to me and I'm really into it, I'm dancing, I'm like jamming along, just going nuts. Man, I Feel Like a Woman's on because I love that song. It's just a
Great
perfect.
song.
You have that. Let's
There's
go,
a lot
girls.
of iconic sounds we hear that relate to things like you hear a piano key play and then another piano key play, you're like, oh, Black Parade,
Yeah,
My
when
Chemical
I
Romance.
was.
If I hear bow bow, I'm already going. Let's go, girls. Let's go.
Yeah, you're cracking open a beer and ready to go.
Right?
I mean, that
Like,
song, that song is like, man, it just puts me in a good mood.
perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
All right, David, round us out.
So, I am a little opposite of Nick. I don't like country music. I just can't get into it. I'm sorry. I'm a big rock fan, indie rock, like, your punk, like emo stuff. Like, I just like a classical, like everything, jazz. But I couldn't pinpoint a specific song, but I could pinpoint a specific artist
Uh-oh.
that, my wife loves this artist, buys every album when it comes out, plays it nonstop, and it just gets ingrained into my brain where I'll just be like humming the songs. And this artist, very well known, none other than Miss Taylor Swift.
Okay.
All right.
And her latest album, Midnight, like I know pretty much every song by heart right now. And I'll just hear like a beat and I'm just like, oh, 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 oh. Like staring at the ceiling with you. Like it's just like she gets me. Taylor Swift gets me, I
Listen,
think she gets all of us.
people that judge people that listen to Taylor Swift just hate good music.
They do. They do. Our morning announcements at my school, I teach middle schoolers, okay? And the morning announcements crew will play songs as the show's getting ready. And they've played some Taylor Swift songs. And I'm just sitting there humming it. And girls are like, you like Taylor Swift? She's not that great. I'm like, you're not that great, okay?
Yeah,
you watch
don't
what
know,
you say.
You don't know talent, woman. No, yeah. I mean, Taylor Swift is awesome. I think, we've all jammed to a little bit T-Swizzle here and there. And who cares?
God, her a couple years ago, like her stuff like freaking We Are Never Getting Back Together.
Oh, yeah.
And what's that song? Lying on the cold hard ground.
Oh yeah.
And they made the goat video where like the goats are doing and I'm like, this is great. Like all this is great.
She's one of those artists who like you may not like remember like the song she made in like the moment if somebody asked you, but like as soon as you hear them, you're like, oh yeah, that's that song.
You're on the phone with your girlfriend. She's upset. Yeah, they're T-Swizzle bangs.
Every song is just a slapper.
It is. I mean, and who cares, guys? It's a good song. She plays good music. She went from country to pop to country to pop to country to pop to country to pop. But hey, she's talented. She's made hundreds of millions of dollars because she's damn good at what she does. And I don't care who's listening right now. If you hate on T-Swizzle, you don't know good music.
Right. For sure.
Also, I have a guilty pleasure album. It's not really even a guilty pleasure album. It's just a banger. It's just a banger. I mean, the Tarzan album. Phil Collins goes absolutely.
So good.
Phil Collins, terrible person, amazing musician.
Oh God! I mean, the Tarzan album. Me and my buddies had a debate over best soundtrack in a movie. I said Tarzan without a doubt.
That came up between two of my buddies where we were talking about like soundtracks, and one of them said not so good. I'm like, you're a monster. Get out of here.
It just hits home. It just hits the heart.
It does. I mean, only Phil Collins can be the lead singer and the backup singer on his own song. Nobody else can pull that off.
Unreal talent.
Except maybe Sting. I think Sting could do it.
But no, I thought it'd be a fun way to end the show off. Everybody kind of gets like a glimpse into who we are outside of the show.
Yeah, we only been around for 3 years. It's about time we started like showing our real selves.
Oh yeah. I'm a Swiftie. I'll say it.
I'll go ahead and close this out. If you liked what you heard or saw tonight on the show, please feel free to give us a like, a follow, share, whatever the social media currency is on the platform that you found us on. At the end of the day, it helps the show grow a lot. We are all over the social media spheres. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Facebook. We're all over the place. Feel free to give us the currency of your choice. If you have any sort of like feedback or anything like that for the show, again, feel free to send it in. That helps the show get better, helps us, put on a better show for you guys also. Because at the end of the day, it's a podcast by fans for fans. Yeah, we all enjoy watching, these teams play, but we get together because we enjoy talking about. We put it up here for you guys to enjoy the conversations that we have with each other. So if you have any way that you think that we can improve this show, feel free to send it to us. Like, we're really open to critiques of the show. But with all that being said, for your host tonight, Jordan Linscott, and for my co-hosts, David Barnhouse and Nick Page, this has been another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. We'll catch you guys back all here next time. And in the meantime, stay safe, and we'll catch you back later.